Well, the Pac-12 isn't dead. In fact, it's expanding. But will that actually include Cal and Stanford? We'll discuss here in the video today. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. Here on this channel, I talk college football conference realignment all day, every day. Please subscribe if you haven't. I will make you the smartest college football fan in your group chat. So we have a big story here. You've probably heard this by now. If not, the Pac-12 is expanding. And remember, the Pac-12 does still exist right now. It's just Oregon State and Washington State. But they are officially adding Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State. They have raided the Mountain West. This is schools that have been now accepted into the conference officially. A statement is out. And I'm about to read to you some of the reporting from Ross Dellinger on this. Dellinger says, from Yahoo Sports, by the way, this is expected to be the first phase in a multi-phase expansion to reach, at the very least, 8 schools, the NCAA's minimum required to qualify as an FBS conference. So right now they're at 6 with the addition of 4, right? They still need 2 more, and they only have until July 2026 to do that. That's the end of the 2-year grace period, which may not seem like that's all that soon, but in the world of like making big picture decisions like this, it's actually not all that much time. So this is going to set off a wave of realignment. We're going to get more here. The Pac-12 is going to need to do more. It's also an expansion that is a little bit expensive, according to Dellinger, because each Mountain West school is contractually bound to a $17 million exit fee. That doesn't sound all that high when you're talking about like the SEC, Texas, Oklahoma figures that they had, right? But this is teams that are not making that kind of a paycheck every single year. That's significant money. The Pac-12 is on the hook for an additional $10 to $12 million penalty fee for every school they acquire as part of a scheduling agreement with that the conference struck with the Mountain West. So that was back to months ago when the scheduling agreement was struck between Oregon State and Washington State and the Mountain West, saying, like, we need games. Let's figure this out. We'll play each other, see what happens down the road. Included in that was, hey, if you rate us, you're going to have to pay for it. So they will have to pay for it. Pac-12 officials and third parties have presented a plan that features a new media rights agreement worth more than the Mountain West Conference current or future TV package, as well as the sponsorship potential of the Pac-12 brand. Okay, so meaning they are saying this is going to be worth more money than what the Mountain West schools would have gotten. That is what they are projecting. Now, I don't know that it's going to be a ton more than like the highest G5 money, which we'll talk about more later, which is from the AAC. But it does stand to be more than the Mountain West Conference, and you do have some brand equity built in the Pac-12 brand. So I can understand that being enticing as well. Dellinger says, as I mentioned earlier, this could ignite another round of realignment, at least for those schools at the Group of 5 or even FCS level. The Mountain West is going to have to backfill somewhere, right? This starts a domino effect every time it happens. And one other thing to watch out for is that in the next 2 years, the Pac-12 champion is not eligible for an automatic qualifying spot in the college football playoff. But starting in 2026, the champion of a rebuilt Pac-12 could theoretically get an automatic bid to the college football playoff. Now, I would not imagine that that's going to happen, but that is, as they're building this conference, something they're thinking about, trying to put together the best league that could actually add that. Now, who else are they going to add? Would this include Cal and Stanford? All right, I've seen all the fan fiction out there on Twitter. Lots of people even have seen Oregon State fans saying, what about Cal, Stanford, Utah eventually coming back here? I would not get your hopes up if you are somebody that really wants to see it. So here's what Ross Dellinger says. He says, Oregon State and Washington State's overtures to the Big 12 and ACC went nowhere. They showed little to no interest, as they did last fall when the leagues took Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State, and Stanford and Cal. So I know we've talked about this a lot, but I do want to emphasize that. Like, you see a lot of people speculating about in the videos about Oregon State and Washington State. It felt like there are a decent amount of Big 12 fans. I've seen them here on this channel who wanted them in the conference. Just more confirmation that the Big 12 was never reciprocating that interest. And it's nothing personal. It's realignment. It's business. It just didn't make dollars and cents for the league to do that. This is funny because of the live show I had the other night. It says there was hope, expressed even publicly at times, that a significant realignment event in the ACC, Florida State, Clemson, others exiting, would trigger a domino effect that could benefit the Pac-12's future. literally just talked about that, right? We had that interview that we were discussing from the Wilner and Canzano podcast that talked about that. Perhaps they could serve as replacements and form an ACC West Coast wing, or maybe the Cardinal and Bears would be willing in an ACC left in disarray to join them in their rebuild quest, but neither has happened. And here's the key for those of you waiting for the Cal and Stanford piece of this. Ross Dellinger says, and before you ask, Stanford and Cal did sign the ACC grant of rights, binding them to the league until 2036 as the current deal is written. Remember, that's been the sticking point for all of this. Florida State, Clemson, looking at this like we're locked up until 2036. That's awful. So Cal and Stanford are in the same spot right now. They'd be waiting like everybody else for this to get legally sorted out so that they could leave if they wanted to, right? And that seemingly is a big if. Dellinger says, for now, as the ACC agreement is written, they're not candidates in a Pac-12 rebuild. But one day, if the ACC starts losing members, could they be? Sure. All right, so this is where you insert Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance. I guess Ross Dellinger does leave the door cracked open for that a little bit. If the ACC blows up, all bets are off. They will need some sort of a home. So the Cal-Stanford piece of this maybe could happen down the road. It certainly is not going to happen right now because of the money, right? Dellinger points out, well, Cal and Stanford are not yet receiving full ACC shares. They will eventually get them, and those figures are expected to be significantly more than the TV value of this new Pac-12. He says as much as triple the amount of money there. Triple the amount of money. So that's the key sticking point here. If you're somebody that's hoping for it now, Cal and Stanford to be going to this Pac-12, they would be taking a 2/3 revenue cut on their TV deal to do so. Maybe not quite that much. I guess if they're moving to the new league, it could add a little bit, but they'd be taking a big hit. Now, as far as like where the rest of this goes, right? Who are the other members going to be? Dellinger mentions the AAC having the most attractive members from a TV market, brand value, on-field success perspective. Memphis, Tulane, UTSA, North Texas, Rice, and South Florida are all teams that he mentions. It says the Texas schools would make strong travel partners. Same goes with Tulane and Rice because they're high academic institutions. But would these schools in the AAC want to move across the country, go to a completely different region, new cultural fit, and it may only be marginally more money, not substantially more money? Would the Pac-12 brand value and TV deal, TV value, potential of all that, would it be worth it to do that? Dellinger threw out some hypothetical numbers where he said, if the Pac-12 is at 10 to 12 million per school, is that worth a move across the country? When right now it's like 8 to 10 million in the AAC deal. Dellinger says, what about 15 million? He says the latter figure seems high, but who knows? So that's the kind of difference we're talking about. At the high end, it would be like a $7 million difference there. At the low end, maybe like $2 million difference. Is that worth doing all of this? Also, Dellinger says AAC Commissioner Tim Pernetti is going to be proactive. He apparently is interested in pursuing Mountain West programs like Air Force. He has Army and Navy in the conference already, so Air Force would certainly make some sense there. One other school that was thrown out here that could potentially be an addition, I suppose, to either is from the Sun Belt, and that's Texas State. I'm literally recording this right now as Texas State is hosting Arizona State on Thursday Night Football. Texas State has been an up-and-coming athletic department, large student body. They're just outside of Austin. I believe that's in San Marcos, Texas. Like it's not far from Austin. So that is what, if you're looking for someone with potential, like realignment potential, that is definitely a spot. UNLV was a surprise for many that UNLV was not included in this for the Mountain West. It does sound like, according to Dellinger, that they probably would have been, but there are issues with them being tied to the University of Nevada. One of the few times, I guess, where we've seen that tie, a state not wanting to let the two go separately actually is held up and mattered. But yeah, it says politics are at play. According to those with knowledge of discussions, separating the two, Nevada and UNLV, is a hurdle. Doesn't mean it can't be done. So maybe it does happen eventually if they have to come back to the Mountain West and raid again. There is also mention here, Big 12 fans, open up your ears about Gonzaga, a basketball-only member. Says for the longest time, power conferences have flirted with the Zags, which doesn't offer football. Latest run came from the Big 12. Gonzaga makes sense geographically, as it's just 80 miles north of Washington State. But does the Pac-12 want to avoid growing too big because that would dilute the revenue distribution of other programs? So it's really kind of the same discussion we've had with the Big 12 and like UConn, right? Like, does that start to dilute the payout for all the other schools if you're going to add a Gonzaga? But those are the schools that he is talking about right now that could be legitimate ads at this point. Whereas in the future, depending on what happens with the ACC, maybe you could add a Cal and Stanford there. But that's your update. Big realignment news. We can never really get away from it here. Heading into week 3 of the season, we get it right on the eve of the start of week 3 of the college football season. So make sure you subscribe, be the smartest college football fan in your group chat. And if you're a Big 12 fan, sign up for the Open for Business newsletter. It is ofbnews.com to subscribe or click the link in the description. Great way to support the channel. Even if you're not a Big 12 fan, you want to support the channel, get the Open for Business newsletter. Big 12 news to your inbox twice a week. You don't have to deal with the Big 10 or the SEC, any of that. I'm filtering Big 12 news and analysis and bringing it straight to you. Appreciate all of you guys for being here. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.